Imagine you inherit this ancient, terrifying key to a dungeon.
Okay.
And you hold on to it for years. But then, years later, you find out it's not a dungeon key at all. It's actually like the biometric master key to a highly advanced supercomputer.
Oh, wow. That is a massive shift in utility.
Right. And for centuries, humanity has basically held on to a specific word in our historical and sacred texts, and we've been treating it exactly like that dungeon key.
Yeah, using it for entirely the wrong purpose.
Exactly. We've used it to, justify blunt force, explain away poverty, and even excuse physical violence. But what if we've just had it entirely wrong this whole time?
Well, I mean, that's the crux of it. What if this new paradigm-shifting text is right? It argues we've been taking this incredibly sophisticated piece of linguistic technology and essentially using it as a medieval club.
Yeah, just completely misusing it. And that completely upends the foundation of how we see these texts.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because when you change the definition of a single foundational word, the entire architecture built on top of it has to be reevaluated.
Which is scary for a lot of people.
Oh, it is a deeply uncomfortable process, but entirely necessary.
And that is exactly what we are doing on the deep dive today. Welcome, everyone. We are taking a single word that has carried just immense historical baggage, and we are going to completely deconstruct it for you.
Yes, we are tearing it down to the studs.
Our mission today is to rebuild our understanding of this concept from the ground up, and we're doing this using an extensive, highly analytical text by a single author, Dr. Khaled Waleed.
Right, and it's important to establish that everything we cover today, all the translations, every philosophical framework, and every insight, it comes exclusively from his work.
Yeah, specifically his text titled The Charter of Striking, The Engineering of Challenge in Cognitive Bidding.
It is just a remarkable piece of scholarship.
Yeah.
Really. Dr. Waleed basically acts as the engineer who finally, examines the intricate grooves of that key you mentioned.
He puts it under the microscope.
Exactly. He is looking at a specific Arabic root word from the Quran, a word that history has largely translated as physical violence, literal walking, or, just making a loud noise.
Which seems so primitive when you think about it.
Right. And he argues that this word actually holds the secret to understanding divine scientific precision, complex macroeconomics, and highly advanced emotional intelligence.
Which is just a staggering claim. So I want to make sure we ground this for you listening right now. If you've ever felt that ancient texts sometimes clash with modern understandings of logic or justice or human rights.
Which a lot of people do.
Yeah, totally. Dr. Waleed's framework suggests that the flaw isn't in the original text at all. It's actually in the human lens interpreting it.
Yes, the lens has been smudged by centuries of human bias.
Exactly. So let's look at the word we are putting under the microscope today. What is this root?
So the word in its Arabic root is darb.
Darb, okay.
Right, which, as you noted, most commonly translates in historical context as to strike or to hit.
Like physically hitting something?
Yes, physical blunt force. And its derivative is mudaraba. Now, to understand Dr. Waleed's approach, we really have to look at his methodology first.
Because he's not just guessing here.
No, not at all. He doesn't just suggest a cute alternative meaning. He engages in a forensic linguistic analysis.
I love that term.
Yeah, he strips away centuries of what he explicitly calls ignorant heritage in mythology.
Man, ignorant heritage. That is a really strong phrase.
It is. He doesn't pull any punches.
He's essentially saying that human history, with all its biases and tribalism and, primitive power dynamics, just hijacked this word.
Precisely. Dr. Waleed argues that we have been viewing darb through the lens of human historical baggage, rather than its intended purely logical meaning.
Okay, so what is his stance on the whole physical violence aspect?
He entirely rejects the idea that darb in the Quran means physical hitting. Completely and unequivocally.
Completely.
Complete?
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If a word has been translated as to physically strike for over 1,000 years, across various cultures, isn't Dr. Waleed just retroactively changing the dictionary to fit modern sensibilities? I mean, how does he prove this isn't just progressive wishful thinking?
That is the crucial question. And it's exactly what critics would ask. But Dr. Waleed proves it by demonstrating that the traditional physical hitting translation actually breaks down logically when you apply it across different contexts in the text.
Oh, so it creates contradictions.
Exactly. It creates massive contradictions. His methodology relies on finding the singular cohesive root, meaning that functions perfectly in every single context without a single contradiction.
Okay, so it has to work everywhere.
Right. And he argues that translating darb as physical harm or violence is just a massive systemic corruption of the text.
Okay, so if it's not a physical strike, what is the supercomputer key? Like, how does he actually define it?
Well, he defines darb using concepts like challenging or bidding.
Bidding, like in an option.
Yes, specifically in the sense of placing a bid in a market or engaging in an intellectual competition. He calls it cognitive competition and the assertion of truth.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, he frames it as an empowerment tool and a weapon of cognitive challenge.
You know, it sounds a lot like how the word hacking evolved over time.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. If you said he's hacking a few hundred years ago, you'd picture a guy with an axe taking down a tree.
Right.
It meant physical exertion, blunt force, destruction. But now, in the modern era, hacking means a highly sophisticated intellectual challenge to a computer system.
Yes, a battle of wits and code.
Exactly. So is Dr. Waleed essentially saying humanity has been stuck in the chopping wood phase of translating this word, totally failing to see its cognitive meaning?
That is a phenomenal analogy. Honestly, yes. He is arguing that humanity got stuck in a very literal, primitive understanding of the word because, well, that matched the dominant human behaviors of those eras.
People hit things back then, so they thought the book meant hitting.
Exactly. But Dr. Waleed explains that true darb is about competing in goodness. It's about challenging one's own internal desires, establishing firm boundaries, and engaging in intellectual and cognitive sparring.
Cognitive sparring. I really love that phrasing.
It's very evocative. It means seeking God's help to discipline the self so that we stay on a straight path. It is a strictly cognitive and spiritual mechanism, not physical.
But you know, it's one thing to make a massive theoretical claim about linguistics. It's another to actually prove it works in practice.
Yes, the application is where it gets real.
Right. And what makes Dr. Waleed's text so compelling is that he doesn't leave this as just some abstract theory. He takes this redefinition, this new master key, and he inserts it into 4 very distinct, famously difficult passages to show us how the meaning completely transforms.
He does. And to prove that this definition is universal, he spans an incredible range of disciplines.
Yeah, it's not just theology.
Not at all. He moves from the microscopic world of physics and biology straight to macroeconomics, then into the deeply personal realm of domestic relationships, and finally out into sociology and the public sphere.
So let's start with the first example. And for this, we actually need to fundamentally shift our scale. We are looking through a microscope at the parable of the mosquito.
Right. We are looking at Dr. Waleed's analysis of Surah al-Baqarah, verse 26.
Okay, lay out the basics for us.
So this verse discusses how God is not ashamed to strike a parable of a mosquito.
Strike being the word darb.
Exactly. Now, to understand Dr. Waleed's intervention, we first have to look at the traditional interpretation.
The dungeon key version.
Right. Historically, this has been read as just a simple lesson in humility. The idea is that God is so unimaginably great that he isn't too proud to use even the most lowly, annoying, insignificant bug as an example for humans.
Yeah, the traditional view treats the mosquito as the ultimate symbol of insignificance, like a rhetorical device.
Yes, like, hey humans, don't be arrogant. Even this tiny pest is part of creation.
But Dr. Waleed looks at this verse and basically says, we are entirely missing the scientific magnitude of what is actually happening. He completely redefines the role of the mosquito here, doesn't he?
He does. Dr. Waleed argues that the mosquito isn't just some random bug chosen because it's annoying or small.
Right.
He proposes this revolutionary view. He says the mosquito represents the ultimate microscopic unit of measurement. He actually calls it the divine nano.
The divine nano. Wow. That phrase alone shifts the text from ancient poetry to, like, modern physics.
It really does. It elevates the text entirely.
But I'm kind of struggling to see how a mosquito relates to a bid. Because a bid, in my mind, implies a transaction, like a market, someone putting money on the table to win something.
Sure, I see where you're coming from.
So where's the transaction here? How does a bug equal a bid?
Well, you have to think of bidding in the context of an intellectual wager or a challenge of value. Remember, we are redefining strike, or darb, as a cognitive challenge.
Okay, tracking.
So, when Dr. Waleed says God strikes a parable with a mosquito, it is a divine bid. God is placing an intellectual wager on the table.
Ah, I get it.
It's as if the divine is saying, here is the ultimate standard of microscopic precision. I challenge your human metrics to comprehend or match this.
Okay, I see. It's an assertion of supremacy in the marketplace of engineering. God is putting the mosquito on the table and saying, bid against this.
Exactly. Dr. Waleed explains that this is a demonstration that the divine creator does not overlook or wrong anyone, even at the absolute most microscopic levels of existence.
The scale is perfectly balanced.
Right, down to the nano level. It is not about an insect at all. It is about the limits of human measurement versus divine mathematical precision.
And what really blows my mind is how Dr. Waleed dives into the specific phrasing of the verse to prove this point.
Yes, the linguistic detail is incredible.
There's a phrase in the text that translates to a mosquito and what is above it. Now, in the traditional ignorant heritage reading, you'd think above it just means something bigger.
Right, literally above it in size.
Like a mosquito and also a fly or a bird. But Dr. Waleed flips that spatial logic entirely, right?
This is where his methodology truly shines. He interprets above it in the context of scientific precision, not physical size.
Okay, explain that.
He argues that what is above it means going beyond the mosquito into even smaller, more precise, more granular levels of measurement. He is talking about atomic and subatomic weights.
Oh, wow. So above it means a higher level of complexity, a higher level of microscopic resolution.
Precisely. Dr. Waleed specifically connects this to the concept of the weight of an atom, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Quran.
So he's building a cohesive scientific framework across the text.
Exactly. He's saying that no matter how much our human capacity for measuring matter grows, no matter how powerful our electron microscopes get, we are merely discovering the original divine origin of mathematical precision that has always been there.
He's arguing that the text is demanding we look at the physical universe not just as stuff, but as exact, meticulously calculated atomic weights.
Yes.
If you are listening to this, think about how you view the world around you. Do you just see trees and bugs and dirt, or do you see the underlying math? Because Dr. Waleed explicitly states that we must perceive these atomic weights and learn how to use them to build everything in our lives.
That is the core mandate. This strike of the mosquito isn't some cute bedtime story about a bug.
No, not at all.
It is a profound scientific challenge. It is a cognitive bid to humanity to elevate our understanding of physics, nanotechnology, and atomic structure.
It totally reframes the text from being a static book of ancient morals to an active, ongoing scientific imperative.
It makes it incredibly relevant to today's technological landscape.
It's demanding that the reader measure better and understand the atomic architecture of reality.
Sure.
And honestly, if you look at a mosquito through a modern scientific lens, it is an incredible piece of nanotechnology.
Oh, absolutely. The engineering is flawless.
The way it processes carbon dioxide to track targets, its complex flight mechanics, the localized anesthesia it uses when it bites so you don't feel it right away.
Right. It's an engineering marvel that human scientists are still trying to fully replicate.
And that is exactly why Dr. Waleed views it as the ultimate cognitive bid. The divine is putting the highest standard of engineering on the table and challenging human intellect to comprehend it. The word darb here functions perfectly as to challenge.
Perfectly, without any contradiction.
Okay, so we've seen how Dr. Waleed applies this concept of bidding and challenging to the microscopic world of quantum physics and biology.
Yes.
But, you know, human life isn't just lived under a microscope. We have to eat, we have to trade, we have to survive in societies.
We have to function in the real world.
Exactly. So if this framework is truly universal, how does he apply it to macroeconomics?
Well, that brings us to Dr. Waleed's second major pillar. We are transitioning from the scientific laboratory straight into the economic battlefield.
The marketplace.
Right. Here, Dr. Waleed examines a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 273. This verse specifically discusses a group of poor people who cannot strike in the land.
Strike in the land. Okay, let's look at the old Dungeon Key translation first.
Sure.
Because if I read strike in the land, literally, I picture someone physically hitting the ground, maybe walking with a staff, you know, traveling long distances for trade or migration. And traditionally, that's exactly how it's been interpreted, right? People who are physically incapable of traveling to a market to make a living.
That is the overwhelming historical consensus. The traditional view paints a picture of geographical confinement, maybe physical disability, or perhaps fear of travel due to war.
It's a very literal, physical reading of the text.
Very physical. But Keeping strictly in line with his overarching thesis, Dr. Waleed completely rejects this physical interpretation.
No surprise there.
Right. He argues that striking in the land must be understood purely as mudaraba.
And mudaraba is the derivative of darb.
Yes.
How does he define mudaraba in this specific context?
He defines it as market competition and economic bidding.
So striking in the land doesn't mean walking on dirt.
Not at all.
It means entering the marketplace. It means pitching your business, trading goods, applying for jobs, competing for contracts. It is the fundamental act of economic participation.
Exactly. You are bidding your skills or your capital in the market. But what makes Dr. Waleed's analysis so profound here is how this redefinition fundamentally changes our understanding of who this verse is actually talking about.
It changes how we view the poor.
Yes, it completely redefines that demographic.
Walk me through that, because usually when ancient texts talk about the poor, it's just a broad blanket statement for anyone who is hungry or destitute.
True, but Dr. Waleed offers a fascinating, almost jarringly modern socioeconomic definition of poverty here.
Okay.
According to his analysis, the specific people described in this verse, those who cannot strike in a land, are not physically disabled, and they are not completely destitute or lacking in basic human capacities.
Wait, if they aren't destitute, how are they poor?
Well, Dr. Waleed makes a critical linguistic distinction. In Arabic, a completely destitute person, someone who lacks basic survival means, is often referred to as miskeen.
Okay, miskeen.
But Dr. Waleed points out that the text deliberately distinguishes the people in this verse from the miskeen.
So who are these people who cannot strike?
According to Dr. Waleed, these are highly qualified, capable individuals. They have the skills, they have the education, they have the capacity to produce, but they are simply unemployed or facing temporary systemic obstacles that prevent them from entering what he calls the ring of production.
Wow.
They are blocked from honest market competition. They are sidelined.
So if you are listening to this right now and you've ever experienced being laid off, maybe the economy tanked or your industry shifted, you know exactly what this feels like.
Oh, intimately.
You have a stellar resume, you have a brilliant mind, but you just can't get an interview. You can't find a platform to pitch your skills.
You're blocked from the mudaraba.
Yes. Dr. Waleed is basically describing modern structural unemployment.
That is precisely what he is describing. He explicitly states that this type of poor person is an unemployed individual who possesses all the qualifications that enable them to earn a living, but they have stumbled for a circumstantial reason.
So it's circumstantial, not an inherent lack of ability.
Exactly. They have lost the ability, temporarily, to engage in honest, honorable competition.
Let me push back on this a little, because this changes the entire emotional register of how we deal with poverty.
It really does.
Historically, charity is deeply wrapped up in pity. You look down on the person who can't walk to the market, you feel sad for them, and you give them a handout. But Dr. Waleed's framework removes the pity entirely.
It does, and that is the massive paradigm shift here. It shifts the view of this poor person from an object of pity to an equal player, a peer, who's just temporarily sidelined from the game.
It restores their absolute dignity.
It restores their dignity and recognizes their inherent value.
It changes the social dynamic of charity. You are not handing out scraps to a lesser being. You are temporarily subsidizing a sidelined competitor until they can get back into the economic ring and resume their own cognitive bidding.
Exactly right. Dr. Waleed positions this kind of economic support not just as emotional sympathy, but as a systemic necessity to keep the market healthy and competitive.
Because you need good players in the game.
Right. You want these qualified people back in the mudaraba. By defining darb as economic bidding, the text suddenly reads like an incredibly sophisticated modern macroeconomic policy aimed at resolving structural unemployment and maintaining labor force dignity.
It's brilliant. It makes so much sense. So the cognitive bid works seamlessly in the microscopic world of science, and it works perfectly in the macroscopic world of the economy.
Yes, no contradictions yet.
But now we have to move to the most difficult test of Dr. Waleed's framework.
The domestic sphere.
Right, because logic and cognitive bidding are easy to apply to math and markets. But what happens when you apply this framework to the most intimate, emotional, and historically fraught space of all? What happens behind closed doors?
We are entering the most vital and arguably the most controversial application of Dr. Waleed's thesis.
Yeah, this is heavy.
He takes this exact same analytical framework, this master key, and inserts it into the psychology of domestic relationships. Specifically, he analyzes the infamous verse regarding marital discord in Surah An-Nisa, verse 34.
I want to tread carefully here, but we also need to be incredibly clear because the traditional translation of this verse has caused immense pain and has been used to justify horrific behavior.
It has a very dark history of misinterpretation.
This verse deals with situations of extreme marital tension, specifically addressing a concept called nushuz.
Yes, nushuz.
How does Dr. Waleed define nushuz?
Dr. Waleed's definition of nushuz is deeply psychological. He defines it as a state of rebellion, an extreme exacerbation of matters, severe anger, and a sharp temperament that elevates to the level of pure, toxic arrogance.
Okay, so we aren't just talking about bickering over who does the dishes here.
No, not at all. This is a massive, toxic breakdown in communication.
Yeah.
It is a state where the ego has swollen to a point that it threatens to destroy the partnership.
The ego takes over entirely.
Right. The person in a state of nushuz is fundamentally unreachable through normal conversation because their arrogance is acting as a shield.
And historically, the ignorant heritage translation of this verse provided a sequence of steps to handle this nushuz.
It did.
And the final step in that traditional sequence uses our root word darb. For centuries, this was translated literally as striking women physically.
It was. And Dr. Waleed's response to this historical interpretation is a fierce, uncompromising denunciation.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
He does not soften his language at all. He explicitly calls the idea of physical abuse a myth, a criminal act, and a complete contradiction of divine wisdom.
He completely dismantles the justification for it.
Entirely. He categorizes the traditional interpretation of physical hitting as part of what he calls an Israelite or devilish heritage.
Wow, devilish heritage.
Yes. He argues that this false physical translation was a deliberate corruption by human societies meant to subjugate the physically weak.
It was about power.
Exactly. It was an excuse for psychological humiliation and excessive forced control. He argues that using physical violence to solve an emotional crisis is the path of the devil, not the divine.
So if the Dungeon Key translation of physical violence is a toxic myth, how does Dr. Waleed use the supercomputer key to read this verse?
This is where it gets really beautiful.
If you are in a relationship facing this extreme arrogant nushuz, how does his framework map out the resolution?
Dr. Waleed carefully outlines a three-step framework embedded in the text. And when you read it through his lens, it transforms into an incredibly advanced method of emotional de-escalation.
Instead of escalation.
Right. It moves progressively from internal reflection to spatial separation to a final cognitive intervention.
Okay, let's walk through this step by step, just as Dr. Waleed presents it. Imagine a couple at the absolute breaking point. Step 1 is admonition. What does he mean by that?
Step 1, admonition, is about attempting to address the internal spiritual state. Dr. Waleed explains this as using the divine wisdom of the Quran, which is full of parables and moral lessons, to remind the person of their higher purpose.
So it's an appeal to their conscience.
Yes, it's an attempt to trigger their conscience and calm the soul.
And it's verbal grounding. It's saying, let's step back, let's remember our core values, let's look at the bigger picture to cool this anger down.
Exactly.
But as anyone who has ever been in a screaming match knows, when ego and severe anger are involved, words don't always penetrate. The ego rejects the admonition.
Right. Logic flies out the window.
So if step 1 fails and the situation doesn't de-escalate, what is step 2 in Dr. Waleed's framework?
Step 2 is translated as separation in beds. And Dr. Waleed's psychological analysis of this is just profoundly practical.
What does he say?
He says this is about giving the psychologically tense person space. It means allowing them to sleep alone, completely free from any psychological pressure or the physical proximity of their partner.
Yeah, it's spatial triage.
Spatial triage, exactly.
When two people are trapped in a toxic loop of anger, forcing them to share the most intimate space in a home, a bed, is just throwing gasoline on the fire.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Waleed notes that this forced spatial separation allows the person time to heal and to recover from the stress and the tightness of the situation.
It lets the nervous system regulate.
Yes, it gives them the necessary solitude to review their own actions and reflect. Crucially, it removes the immediate agitating interference of a swollen ego clashing with their partner's presence.
He calls this separation a direct manifestation of divine mercy, doesn't he?
He does. Divine mercy and wisdom.
It's literally a mandated cooling off period. You separate the volatile elements so they don't explode.
Exactly. But here is the critical juncture.
Right. What if the separation doesn't work?
Exactly. What if giving them space doesn't lead to reflection, but instead they just become more deeply entrenched in that arrogant, rebellious new shoes?
That brings us to step 3, the final step, the word darb.
This is the climax of his entire argument. If the new shoes persist despite admonition and separation, the final step is the darb.
Okay, here we go.
And entirely consistent with his thesis in physics and economics, Dr. Waleed defines this not as a physical strike against the body, but as a cognitive challenge.
Walk me through that. How do you execute a cognitive challenge in the middle of a marital crisis? Like, what does that actually look like in real life?
It means confronting the person's arrogance with absolute truth, impenetrable logic, and firm, uncompromising boundaries.
So no yelling, just cold, hard facts.
Right. Dr. Waleed explains it as seeking God's help to challenge the one whose soul has become arrogant and persistent in overstepping.
Yeah.
You are bidding against their false narrative.
It's an emotional intervention.
An intervention, yes.
Because if you think about it logically, if their problem is an inflated ego, hitting their physical body does nothing to solve the root issue.
Nothing at all.
It just creates fear and resentment. Dr. Whaley is saying you must strike at the ego itself. You bring in undeniable facts, perhaps you bring in mediators, you set absolute boundaries, and you shatter the delusion that their arrogant behavior is acceptable.
That is exactly right. If we connect this back to his core premise, the darb is an empowerment tool.
Right.
In this context, it empowers the aggrieved partner to stand firmly against psychological abuse and extreme ego without ever resorting to the ignorant heritage of physical harm.
It requires so much more emotional intelligence to cognitively dismantle a partner's ego than it does to just lose your temper and lash out physically.
Oh, immeasurably more. Dr. Waleed is arguing that the text is demanding an incredibly high level of emotional maturity and strategic communication from us.
It requires a complete mastery of oneself.
Because to execute a cognitive strike effectively, you must be calm, logical, and deeply rooted in truth. You cannot be flailing in anger.
Yeah, you can't be matching their toxic energy.
Exactly. Dr. Waleed explicitly states that leaving matters without this wise confrontation is a failure, but acting with physical cruelty is the path of the devil.
So the true divine path is the cognitive strike.
Yes.
It completely revolutionizes the text. It takes a verse that has historically been weaponized for oppression and reveals it to be a highly sophisticated blueprint for boundary setting and conflict resolution.
It is a stunning reinterpretation, and he maintains this logical consistency perfectly throughout the entire text.
But there's one final area he explores. We have moved from the microscopic to the economic to the intimate private sphere.
Right, now we look outward.
Yes, Dr. Waleed takes his framework into the public sphere. He looks at sociology, public space, and how we present our physical bodies to the world.
Yes, we are moving to the final application of Dr. Waleed's concept, the architecture of modesty.
Okay, lay the groundwork for this one.
So he focuses his linguistic analysis on Surah An-Nur, verse 31.
Which is a famous verse.
It is. It's heavily debated in the context of women's clothing and modesty. And what's fascinating is that in this single verse, the root word for striking, darb, is used twice.
Twice in one verse.
Yes, and in two very different physical contexts. It talks about striking the covers, or kumar, and it commands to not strike the feet.
Okay, let's break those down sequentially using Dr. Waleed's framework. First, the text mentions striking the covers, the kumar, over the juyub.
Right, the juyub, which translates to the bodily openings or hidden areas.
Now, obviously, you can't have a cognitive debate with a piece of fabric.
Obviously not.
So how does darb, this idea of bidding or challenging, apply to clothing?
Well, in this context, Dr. Waleed translates striking the covers as an act of dominance.
Dominance. Okay, walk me through that linguistic leap. How does bidding become dominance?
Think about the market again, because a successful bid dominates the market.
Oh, right.
When you place a winning bid, you assert control over the asset. Dr. Waleed argues that striking the cover means using the fabric to dominate, to completely overwhelm and conquer the base human temptation to expose oneself.
So the strike here is the cognitive assertion of a boundary over the physical body.
Exactly. It is the triumph of deliberate concealment over the ego's desire to provoke temptation in the public square.
So choosing to cover up is a cognitive choice to dominate the ego's desire for physical attention. It's an internal challenge that you win.
Yes.
And Dr. Waleed is anatomically precise about what exactly is being covered here, isn't he? He doesn't just leave modesty as some vague, culturally defined concept.
No, he is incredibly specific. When the verse mentioned the juhub, Dr. Waleed explicitly lists the physical areas over which this dominance must be established.
What are they?
He identifies the armpits, the thighs, the breasts, and the buttocks. These are the specific hidden areas he states must not be exposed to provoke temptation.
And what I found equally fascinating is what he explicitly excludes from that list of hidden areas.
This is a crucial distinction in his work. Dr. Waleed explicitly notes that the head, the hands, and the feet are naturally visible parts of the body's beauty.
Naturally visible, meaning they aren't meant to be hidden.
Right. He argues that these were designed by God, the ultimate creator, to be visible and functional in the world.
So he is pushing back against extreme interpretations of modesty as well.
Strongly. He argues that forcing the covering of the naturally visible parts, like the head, hands, and feet, is an unwarranted addition to the divine text.
Which is a huge statement.
He states clearly that humans must not lie about God's words by adding to them or subtracting from them. The strike of the cover, the act of dominance, is meant only for those specific hidden areas he listed.
It's a very architectural view of the body. It's about consciously delineating public and private spaces on your own physical form.
Yes, an architecture of modesty.
So that explains the first use of darb in the verse. Striking the covers as an act of dominance over temptation. But what about the second use?
Right, the feet.
Because later in the same verse, it issues a prohibition, and do not strike their feet.
This is where Dr. Waleed's critique of traditional interpretations becomes incredibly sharp.
Okay, what is the traditional take on this?
The historical traditional explanation for striking the feet is highly culturally specific. It usually focuses on hidden jewelry.
Jewelry?
Yeah, the prevailing historical idea was that women wore anklets under long, sweeping dresses, and they would deliberately stamp or strike their feet on the ground to make those hidden anklets jingle.
Oh, to draw attention to themselves.
Exactly, thereby drawing male attention in public.
The jingling anklet theory, I mean, it's a very vivid image, but it feels so specific to a certain era and a certain type of fashion. What does Dr. Waleed think of this traditional explanation? He dismisses it entirely.
Doesn't buy it.
Not for a second. In fact, he explicitly calls the anklet theory a miserable, ignorant heritage.
Ouch.
Yeah. He says early commentators projected this onto the divine text based on their own cultural anxieties.
Another massive myth busted. So if it's not about making noise with jewelry, what is it?
Applying his perfectly consistent framework, Dr. Waleed defines striking the feet as a kinetic bid, or a movement competition.
A kinetic bid. Let's unpack that. Because darb is the root of mudaba, the marketplace.
Right.
It's an assertion of presence to gain an advantage. So the kinetic bid with the feet must be about how you move through space to compete for attention.
Keep going.
Wait, Dr. Waleed is basically describing a runway strut.
He is.
He's describing the mechanics of a catwalk.
That is the perfect modern parallel. Dr. Waleed describes it as constant, deliberate physical posturing.
Oh, wow. It is the act of strutting back and forth, moving in a continuous, calculated way that is designed specifically to highlight the hidden curves, the concealed beauty, and the physical details of the body.
It's the manufactured walk.
Exactly.
It's not about the sound of an anklet. It's about the biomechanics of seduction.
Yes.
It's the way someone intentionally swings their hips, arches their back, or postures their body in public to draw the eye, to say, look at me, look at what I have.
It's an aggressive, physical bid for validation.
Exactly, in the public square.
Yes. And Dr. Waleed views this as a profound social distraction. He sees it as an unfair, entirely material competition.
Unfair because it's purely physical.
Right. When people engage in this kinetic bidding, this constant daily catwalk, they're challenging divine wisdom by trying to weaponize their physical beauty to gain an edge.
To cause temptation.
To cause temptation and to dominate the attention of the public sphere.
It creates a toxic marketplace of physical comparison. You're constantly bidding against everyone else's physical form.
Precisely. And that constant, exhausting competition for physical attention distracts society from what truly matters.
Which is what?
Spiritual equilibrium and cognitive growth. Therefore, the command to not strike the feet is a prohibition against engaging in this vain, kinetic competition.
So it's a call to move differently.
It is a call to move through the world with dignity and purpose, rather than treating public space as a runway for physical bidding.
If you look at our modern world, this insight is just staggering.
It is incredibly relevant.
You look at social media, you look at fashion culture, influencer culture, it is just an endless global stream of kinetic bidding.
It's everywhere.
It's everyone striking their feet, posturing their bodies, trying to outbid each other for likes, followers, and attention. Dr. Waleed has basically taken an ancient verse about feet and turned it into a scathing, incredibly relevant critique of modern physical vanity and the attention economy.
It is a remarkable synthesis of ancient text and modern psychological reality. By simply adhering strictly to his definition of darb as challenging and bidding, Dr. Waleed manages to unlock layers of meaning that have been obscured for centuries by human bias and literalism.
It really is like we've been holding the wrong key this whole time.
We really have.
As we pull back and synthesize this entire journey today, the sheer scope of Dr. Khaled Waleed's achievement in the Charter of Striking is just staggering.
The magnitude of it is hard to overstate.
Through the singular vision of his linguistic analysis, we have seen how redefining just one root word changes the entire architecture of how we view the world.
It alters multiple disciplines simultaneously without ever breaking its own internal logic.
It absolutely does. I mean, it changes a story about a lowly bug into a profound, ongoing mandate on atomic precision and the divine nano.
Right.
It changes an ancient rule about travel into a sophisticated macroeconomic theory of market competition and a dignified approach to structural unemployment.
It changes everything.
It transforms a terrifying justification for domestic abuse into an advanced, psychologically sound method of emotional de-escalation and cognitive boundary setting.
And finally,
it turns an obscure rule about jingling anklets into a cutting modern critique of physical vanity, the catwalk, and the toxic attention economy.
and through every single one of those examples, the word never means to physically harm.
Never.
It always means to challenge, to assert dominance over base instincts, to bid for truth, and to elevate the human condition through deliberate cognitive effort.
To you, listening right now, when you consider the depth of Dr. Waleed's framework, you realize just how much power a single word holds over a culture's entire worldview.
It dictates reality.
If you get the word wrong, if you rely on ignorant heritage, you build a society based on pity, physical control, literalism, and vanity. But if you get the word right, if you find the true cognitive root, you build a society based on scientific inquiry, economic empowerment, emotional intelligence, and human dignity.
Which brings us to a deeply provocative question.
Yes, it does.
It is the exact question that Dr. Khaled Waleed poses at the conclusion of his text, and it is the question we want to leave with you to ponder. He asks, how can we actively use this concept of a cognitive strike in our world today?
It's a great question.
What other words in our inherited histories, whether religious or secular, have been distorted by human bias into something ugly, primitive, or oppressive?
What other concepts are just waiting for a profound intellectual challenge, a true darb, to strip away the mythological rust and restore them to their original noble meaning? Because if we've been holding the key to the supercomputer all this time and using it to try and smash open a dungeon, what other keys are sitting on our key ring? We challenge you to go out there and bid for the truth in your own lives. Don't just accept the rusty translations of the past. Be the engineer. Examine the grooves. And maybe, just maybe, you'll unlock something extraordinary.